In the last section, we generated a brand new React project. In this section, we're going to learn how to work around with this project just a little bit in case you're new to the Node.js or React.js world. Again, we're not really quite so much focused on the code that is running inside the container. We're really much more interested in how this container is going to interact with the outside world. So with that in mind, I'm going to first change into the directory that was created when we just generated our project. So remember, we called our project frontend. So I'm going to change into that thing. And then inside of here, we're going to run a couple of different commands to understand how we're going to interact with the project. The three commands that we're going to need to be aware of, and these are commands that we're going to run several times as we develop this entire workflow, are npm run start, run test, and run build. npm run start is a development-only command. It starts up a development server, which is used to host our application and make it available inside of our web browser. Now, it's very important to note that this development server that is created is very much a development server. It is not appropriate for use in production. And so when it gets to figuring out how we're going to take the Docker container and deploy it to the outside world, well, we're definitely gonna have to do a little bit of follow-up on that side of things. The next command to be aware of is npm run test, which is used to run any tests that are associated with the project. When we generate our React project, it automatically gets one or two tests created for us. We're not going to add any additional tests because, of course, this is not a course about testing or React.js or anything like that. Instead, we're just going to run those tests and say, okay, we know how to run tests. Really much more concerned about tests here in the context of making sure that we only deploy our application if all the tests are successfully passing. The last command that we need to be aware of for right now is npm run build. This command is used to take all the JavaScript files that are tied to the project and essentially concatenate them all down into one single file that can then be served in a production environment. Let's very quickly run each of these commands just to make sure that we're familiar with how they work, because understanding them is going to be just a little bit important later on. Now, when I say, just a quick aside here, in case, again, you're not from the React world or JavaScript world, when I say understand these commands, I don't mean to say you have to understand like how JavaScript works or how React.js works. I just mean to say, understand that if we want to run our application in a development environment, we have to run this command. Again, knowledge of React here, really not required one bit. All right, so first off, we'll try running our tests. To run the tests, we'll execute npm run test, like so. That's going to start up a test runner. We're going to see our one test pass, and it looks like, yep, it's good to go for right now. We can then press Q, and that will exit the test runner. We'll then try npm run build. So I'll enter npm run build again inside of my front end directory. When I execute that, it'll say creating a optimized production build. Again, this is going to take all of our different files and essentially just kind of compact them all down into a single file. We can then list out all of our files and folders. You'll notice that there is now a build directory. This folder was not there before. If I look inside the build directory, I'll see that I have a index.html file and a static directory. Inside of the static directory is, well, it's kind of nested in there, but somewhere inside of there is a JavaScript file. This represents the actual JavaScript that is our application. And so at some point in time, we're going to want to serve up this index.html file and JavaScript file from some AWS instance or some AWS service. Now, last command is npm run start. Again, that's going to start up a development server. So I'll execute npm run start like so. That's going to automatically open a tab inside of your browser at localhost 3000, and you'll see the default React application appear. All right, so that is, again, all you really need to know about the application for right now. We've got a command to start up the thing in development. We got a command for tests, and we got a command to get the thing ready to be ran in a production environment. I'm sure you can kind of imagine how there are analogs or very close analogies to each of these commands with other languages as well. So if you're making use of Ruby on Rails, well, npm run start is very similar to like Rails S. Right? And if you're making use of, say, Go, there's a handful of builders out there to run your application in development, but to actually build your application where you would normally run something like Go build, well, here we're going to instead run npm run build. So the whole point here is that we have some very specific set of commands that get us ready for development, get us ready for tests, and get us ready for production. All right, so let's take another quick pause right here, and we're going to start thinking about how we're going to wrap up our application inside of a Docker container that is appropriate for development, specifically development purposes. So quick break, and I'll see you in just a minute.